In a moment no one expected, Prince William stood before the world and revealed the name of his fourth child. And his voice nearly broke. It wasn't just a name, it was a tribute, a memory. And when he said it, the emotion in the room was impossible to ignore. The quiet build-up to the big reveal. It started with silence. Unlike previous royal births, filled with headlines, bets, and speculation, this time the palace said nothing. No teasers, no sources close to the family. It was quiet, too quiet. By the third week after the birth of their fourth child, reporters started whispering something was off. The name hadn't been released. Bookies were still taking bets, but even they admitted the odds were wildly unpredictable. In public, William and Catherine appeared calm, almost too calm. No playful hints, no subtle winks. But body language told a different story. William, at an event in Manchester, rested his hand over his heart when asked about the baby. Catherine, during a walkabout, paused when someone said the name Elizabeth. Neither confirmed, but both left people guessing. Inside the palace, whispers swirled. Courtiers said this name wasn't just a name, it was a message. One that had taken weeks of conversation, and one that made William emotional every time it was brought up. Unlike with George, Charlotte, or Louis, this wasn't just about tradition or continuity. This one was personal. Royal watchers began connecting dots. Catherine had spoken softly about legacy in a prior speech. William had referred to silent strength during an engagement. These phrases, on their own, were nothing. But, put together, they hinted at something deeper. And still, the name wasn't shared. 5 weeks! That's how long the public waited. And when the announcement finally came, it wasn't through a headline or a press leak. It came straight from William's lips, and it changed everything. The announcement moment. It happened at Kensington Palace on a day when no one expected anything major. Journalists were called in at short notice. The press room filled fast. There was no royal banner behind the podium, no decorative flags, just a single microphone and a royal press officer standing stiffly beside it. Then William walked in. He wasn't in full royal dress, no medals, just a navy suit and his wedding band catching the light. Behind him, Catherine stood, elegant, poised, but with an unmistakable tension in her eyes. William looked down for a moment before speaking. When he raised his head, the room went still. "Thank you for joining us today," he began softly. "Catherine and I are incredibly proud to introduce our fourth child to the world. And today, we are honored to share her name with you." He paused. You could hear the shuffle of a single notebook in the back. The room was that quiet. Her name is Isabella Diana. And in that moment, the room exhaled. He followed it with a whisper, a line not included in the official transcript, but heard clearly by those present. "This is exactly what she would have wanted." His voice didn't crack, but it trembled. His eyes glistened, and he swallowed hard. Catherine gently placed a hand on his arm, a quiet gesture of support. No words, but the connection between them was undeniable. The official statement was released seconds later. 4 paragraphs. It described the name as a tribute to strength, compassion, and memory. It noted how Isabella was a name with long royal roots, while Diana, of course, needed no explanation. Photographers captured the moment, but what stayed with people wasn't the announcement. It was William's face, his restraint, his emotion, his heart. For a man raised behind walls of ceremony, this moment felt unfiltered, like the past, present, and future of the monarchy had all collided in one simple sentence. The headlines hit within minutes. William's voice breaks as he names fourth child. Princess Isabella Diana. A royal tribute, a father's love, a mother's memory. And in that moment, across living rooms, phones, and front pages, the nation understood. This wasn't just a name. It was a memory, a promise, a feeling. And it came straight from William's heart. Why this name was chosen. From the moment Isabella Diana was spoken aloud, it became clear. This name wasn't just a royal label, it was a story, a statement, a memory, and a message from William that only those who knew his journey could fully understand. Isabella, elegant, historic, timeless, a name that had quietly appeared in royal bloodlines but never stood center stage. It carried grace, softness, strength, not overly traditional, not too modern. It was regal, but personal. But it was Diana that broke the public open. Not as a political statement, not even as a tribute to headlines past, but as a quiet, unmistakable honoring of a mother lost, and a presence that's never really left him. Palace insiders revealed later that William had struggled for weeks with including it. Not because he didn't want to, but because he wanted to do it right. He didn't want it to feel performative or expected. He wanted it to feel honest. The name was whispered in private meetings, written on notepads, discussed late at night between him and Catherine behind closed doors. It carried the kind of emotional weight that required more than approval. It required readiness. Some senior royals had reportedly expressed concern. Was it too heavy? Would the press spin it into something more? Would it open old wounds? But William had made it clear. This is our daughter, and this is what we want to call her. Behind that decision was also a deeply personal layer. People forget that Diana never met any of her grandchildren. She's spoken of in memories, stories, framed photos. But now, her name lives in a new chapter, not as a symbol of tragedy, but as a living part of the family. There were private moments shared among close friends that Catherine had always imagined their fourth child being a girl. And if that happened, Diana's name would be included, not as a middle name to satisfy the public, but as part of her identity. Something carried proudly. George, Charlotte, and Louis had all asked questions in their own ways when they first heard it. Why Diana again? Charlotte, especially, had been curious, and William had explained it the simplest way possible. Because we love her, and because she should be here. The name wasn't chosen to stir press coverage. It wasn't a strategy. It was a heart decision. And for William, one of the most personal he's ever made. And when he said it aloud, for the first time on record, you could feel what it meant to him. Not just the name, but the moment of saying it. In that name, grief and love lived side by side. In that name, the future of the monarchy looked a little more human, a little more grounded, and a lot more heartfelt. William's emotional reaction. In the carefully constructed world of royalty, emotion is often managed, polished, edited, withheld. But that day, when William said the name Isabella Diana, something cracked through the palace walls. And it wasn't weakness. It was truth. He had rehearsed the words. Of course he had. In front of the mirror, in his head. Probably even silently on the drive to the press room. But when the moment actually came, and those two names sat side by side on his tongue. The weight of it hit him harder than expected. His voice didn't break, not completely. But there was a catch. A slight tremble that only lasted half a second, but it stopped the entire room cold. That one pause said more than any paragraph in the official statement ever could. He looked down right after, took a breath, then added a sentence no one saw coming. "This is exactly what she would have wanted." It wasn't in the script. That line wasn't cleared. It wasn't reviewed. It wasn't part of the media plan. But it was real, and everyone in the room knew exactly who he meant by she. Catherine's hand found his arm at that moment, not dramatically, not for the cameras, but gently, reassuringly. A shared moment only the two of them fully understood. It was the kind of touch that says, "I'm here. You did the right thing." Later that day, insiders described how William had excused himself after the press left, went into one of the private salons, and sat alone for several minutes. No words, just breathing, processing. This wasn't just another royal announcement. It was his first daughter since Diana's passing to carry her name forward. It wasn't nostalgia. It was healing. He didn't cry in public, but those who saw him up close said his eyes were wet. Not broken, but soft. Not overwhelmed, but full. Because it wasn't just about introducing a new royal to the world. It was about inviting his mother into the room. Not in memory, but in presence, in voice, in identity. And the public felt that too. Across social media, there was an emotional flood. People who remembered Diana's warmth, her smile, her fragility. They felt it echoed in William's voice. In a monarchy often accused of emotional distance, that moment was different. Because, for once, a future king didn't just deliver a name. He delivered a feeling. What Catherine's presence signified. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. In that room, as Prince William revealed the name of their daughter to the world, Catherine stood just to his left, still, poised, composed. But for those watching closely, she spoke volumes in silence. There was no flashy outfit, no over-polished grin. She wore a soft cream coat dress, understated jewelry, and an expression that felt grounded, not performative. She didn't try to take the moment. She held it with him. What made it powerful wasn't her stillness, it was her support, visible in the way her body leaned subtly toward William as he spoke, the way her hand reached for his arm when his voice caught, the way her eyes lingered on his profile, as if reminding him, "You're not doing this alone." Observers often talk about Catherine's composure, her royal training, her elegance under pressure. But this time, it wasn't about protocol. This was about partnership. For weeks, they had carried the name decision together, not just as a royal couple, but as parents. As two people who understood the emotional weight of honoring a woman whose shadow still lives in every photograph, every headline, every royal expectation. Catherine knew what that name meant to William, and what it cost him to say it out loud. She also knew what it would mean to the public, to the press, to the family. But she didn't flinch. Not once. Instead, she stood beside him, not behind, not in front, and in doing so, reminded the world that this wasn't a staged royal reveal. It was a shared choice, born in late-night talks, soft tears, and the deeply private bond between two people who faced more than the public ever knows. Later, when the cameras were gone and the headlines started circling, insiders said Catherine pulled William aside and said just one thing: "You did it, and you did it perfectly." There were no grand gestures that day, no press-worthy quotes. But for those who watched closely, Catherine's quiet strength framed the entire moment. And once again, she proved that sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do in the public eye is simply stand beside the man she loves, holding space for the emotions he's finally ready to show. The names ripples through the royal family. Inside Buckingham Palace, the announcement landed like a soft wave, one that carried more emotion than anyone had prepared for. The name Isabella Diana had not been shared in advance with many members of the family. In fact, senior staff said the Queen Consort and the King himself received final confirmation just an hour before the public. But that wasn't because of secrecy. It was because William and Catherine wanted this decision to feel like their own. Sources close to the palace said King Charles paused for a long time after reading the statement. He didn't speak. He simply stared at the name for several minutes before folding the paper and saying softly, "She would have smiled at that." He wasn't referring to Isabella. He was referring to Diana. The name stirred memories, not of politics or press wars, but of family wounds that never truly closed. And hearing it spoken again, as part of a new beginning, created a sense of release that few expected. Camilla, according to one royal aide, showed measured warmth. She didn't comment publicly, nor was she expected to, but she reportedly told close staff that the name was beautiful and brave. George, Charlotte, and Louis were among the first to hear it. Privately, at home, the night before the announcement. George smiled. Charlotte, more inquisitive than ever, asked if her name would ever be used again too. Louis simply said, "Diana is the pretty one from the pictures." Among the staff, there was an emotional undercurrent. Long-serving courtiers who had once worked alongside Diana, those who remembered her laughter echoing through Kensington Palace halls, were said to be visibly moved. One footman was overheard saying, "Feels like we've circled back to something right." But it wasn't just the family and staff who felt the ripple. Across social media, royal watchers and longtime fans of Diana's legacy expressed an overwhelming mix of joy and emotion. Some cried. Some wrote letters. Others posted side-by-side images of Diana and baby Isabella, creating visual tributes that spread faster than the palace press office could track. Some critics, of course, questioned the decision. Too emotional, too obvious, too heavy, they said. But for every skeptic, there were 100 voices saying it felt right. Because what William and Catherine had done wasn't about optics. It was about connection. And the name they chose, one part new, one part timeless, did something rare in royal history. It brought the past forward not as a burden, but as a blessing. Public and media reactions, the surge of emotion. The reaction was instant, and unlike anything the palace had prepared for. Within 7 minutes of William announcing the name Isabella Diana, headlines were flying across every major outlet. "A daughter for Diana" blazed across front pages. "The heir's heart on display" echoed in international coverage from New York to Sydney. But it wasn't just media spin. This moment felt different. Raw, personal, real. Royal announcements are usually wrapped in layers of tradition, but this one cut straight through. For once, the story wasn't about lineage or royal hierarchy. It was about grief, memory, and legacy. And it hit people where it mattered. On social media, the flood was overwhelming. Fans posted tearful reactions. Clips of William's voice tremble went viral. Side-by-side edits of baby Isabella's name next to photos of Princess Diana flooded Instagram and TikTok. One video of the moment, set to soft music and simply titled "She Lives On," crossed 5 million views in 24 hours. Even younger generations, many of whom never lived through Diana's lifetime, connected instantly with the symbolism. Not because it was royal, but because it was human. Tributes came from everywhere. Charities Diana once supported posted congratulatory messages. Celebrities shared their own stories of losing parents and the emotional pull of naming. A former royal photographer tweeted, "I watched Diana cry in that palace. Now I watched her son cry while honoring her. Full circle." And yet, even amid all the praise, some questioned the choice. Critics claimed it was too emotionally loaded, too sentimental, or a move to control the Diana narrative. A few headlines wondered whether the name would cast a shadow over Isabella's future, whether she would grow up constantly compared to a woman she never met. But those voices were quickly drowned out by an even louder truth. This wasn't a PR move. It was a son giving something back to a mother who was taken too soon. And in that honesty, in that quiet break in William's voice, people saw what they'd been longing for from the monarchy for years, a glimpse of something real. And that emotional exposure would go on to reshape more than public opinion. It would reshape how the world saw William himself. The deeper meaning behind the emotion. Something changed in Prince William the moment he said his daughter's name aloud. It wasn't just that his voice cracked. It was that he allowed it to. In a world where royal men are trained to be composed, distant, and always in control, he let that wall come down, if only for a moment. And in that moment, a future king became more than a title. He became a father, a son, a human being caught between two generations, one that never let him grieve, and one he now had the power to raise differently. For decades, William has been seen as the dutiful one, the steady one, the safe one. But that steadiness came at a cost. Behind the handshakes and speeches was a man who lost his mother in front of the world and was never really allowed to speak about it. Until now. In naming his daughter Isabella Diana, William did more than honor the past. He reclaimed it. On his own terms, without press pressure, without public manipulation. It was a quiet revolution, wrapped in a birth certificate. Some inside the palace noticed the shift immediately. One aide, speaking anonymously, said, "That was the first time I saw him choose heart over history." And it's true, because this wasn't just about keeping Diana's memory alive. It was about changing what it meant to be royal, to show that vulnerability isn't a weakness, especially when it comes from love. It also marked a turning point in how the public sees William. For years, he was the heir, the stable rock, the royal who didn't make noise. But now that narrative has changed. Now he's the heir who feels, the man who stood in front of the world and let them see something unguarded. And in doing so, he's stepped into a new phase, not just as the next King of England, but as a symbol of what the future monarchy could be. More human, more connected, more real. Because when a royal allows the world to witness his grief and his growth, something powerful happens. Not just in headlines, but in hearts. What this means, going forward for the family of four. With the name Isabella Diana now known, life at Adelaide Cottage quietly shifted. There were no portraits, no royal outings, just stillness. But those close to the family noticed. Something had changed. William and Catherine slowed down. More time at home, fewer engagements. Their pace felt less like duty, more like intention. The baby changed their routine, but the name changed their tone. George watched his father with new eyes. Charlotte became the proud helper. And Louis, ever playful, called his sister Izzy, a name that stuck. But it was William who seemed transformed. Not as heir, as father. The name had unlocked something in him, a part of himself long buried. The boy who walked behind his mother's coffin. Now, as a father of 4, he wasn't just honoring Diana. He was reshaping her legacy through love. The family's public tone shifted too. More vulnerability, more connection, less formality. Some called it the Isabella effect, a softening of the monarchy led by presence, not protocol. And so, the name didn't just mark a royal birth, it began a new chapter, not in duty, but in heart. The lasting impact of the reveal. Long after the headlines faded and the hashtags disappeared, one thing remained: the moment. That second, Prince William softly said the name Isabella Diana, with emotion in his voice and weight in his eyes, became more than a royal announcement. It became a shared memory. Because it wasn't about protocol or prestige, it was about honoring love. For years, royal watchers questioned what kind of King William might be, distant like tradition demanded, or something more. And in that moment, he answered clearly. He would lead with heart. This name didn't just carry history, it carried healing. It wasn't chosen for optics, it was chosen for meaning. And the public felt that. There was no scandal, no debate, just quiet understanding. This wasn't about Diana, the icon. It was about Diana, the mother, and a son finally giving her presence a place in his daughter's life, not out of grief, but out of love. Years from now, people won't remember the statement or the font. They'll remember his pause, her name, and how, just for a moment, the crown didn't feel like a symbol. It felt like family. The name Isabella Diana wasn't just a royal choice. It was a personal one. William's emotion reminded the world that even future kings carry deep human love. In that moment, the monarchy didn't feel distant. It felt real. And with one name, a new legacy quietly, powerfully began.